Joining me now, making his PFL debut on November the 24th, the Shadow, Khai Wu. How are you doing today, sir?
Good, good. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate your time.
Man, I am pumped that you are here. So congratulations on the most recent win. How did it feel getting back in there and getting the big W again?
Oh man, it felt great. The last, I don't know, however many years, just having, like it's just nice to get back in the win and know how good you are. I was kind of dealing with a couple losses that I'm just like, man, I'm better than that. So it was unfortunate, but those are great learning lessons now, and it just made that last win in February that much sweeter.
Oh man, that's absolutely awesome to hear. Now you would be starting your training camp for the November 24th, probably just around now. What's the outlook for the training camp? How's everything feeling? Tell me everything about the preparations going in for this one.
Yeah, so far it's been great. Did a couple things the past couple years that slowly I'm starting to see the changes now. I keep saying during this fight camp, I'm like, I'm a late bloomer. So it's gonna get better as time goes on. And I feel like I'm in the later, like the mid part of my career now, where the next, 2 to 3 years, 4 years maybe will be my prime. So, some things are kind of kicking in now that I feel a difference, the strength factor. Just getting stronger overall and healthier overall. And this training camp has been nothing short of it's leveling me up because my opponent, more fights than me, more experience. It's nerve wracking. So I asked for these challenges, and I'm very honored to be here in this position with such a game opponent that's forcing me to level up. So this training camp it's very uneasy, and I like it. That's where I feel like I do the best.
Well, I think you said on something there that I noticed about you when I was doing the study for this. I think calling yourself a lifelong learner of mixed martial arts is extremely accurate because you're not going in there and just throwing ham. You're doing like striking breakdowns of here's the thought process that we were doing here. Here's what I think. Do you think this is an accurate description of you?
I would like to think so, but there's always something that could be improved on. So, as great as I take it as a compliment when I hear these things, but I always get inspired and more motivated when I hear that. I'm like, okay, what's a better way to do things now? How can I get better? How can I get people more excited? You know what I mean? Instead of just kind of getting complacent and just kind of pat myself on the back. I get scared when I have that feeling of, oh, I could pat myself on the back now. I get really scared. So I need to constantly continue to improve. But yeah, I would hope that's the best way to describe me. Or if some people looked at my style or, know me, it's more of like that intellectual style.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And on that note, you're not a trash talker at all. Tell me a little bit of your philosophy of really not trash talking people at all.
Well, first off, you wouldn't buy it. I don't look, I don't look that intimidating. So even if I said it, even if I know how to fight, and I went to like, let's just say I go to my local gas station, I just start trash talking someone, no one's gonna take me seriously. So you kind of have to know your strengths and know your weaknesses and play off that. People see me, I'm weaker in stature physically. I look like that. I'm not like shredded to I'm not juicing, I'm not doing anything, and I'm very natural, but because of that, I don't look as athletic or, fast or strong. And
Mhm.
realistically, I don't think I am compared to the normal person. But where I do have an advantage is with the fight IQ. And because I know where I'm weak and I accept that as a fact as opposed to deny it, I can kind of use those as strengths, if that makes sense. So I really do think the trash talking doesn't really work for me, because even I've said I go up to someone and start trash talking, I'm like, you suck, this and that. It's like, realistically, I don't think they suck because they wouldn't be here. Like I just don't get the, like, if the guy sucks, then why are you fighting him? I just never understood that insult. I don't get it. It's just, I think it's good selling, like a selling point, but I'm not. It's just not my style. It's like, you like the color blue, I like the color red. You know what I mean? Like that's just kind of like the way I go about it. So that's why I don't do as much trash talking.
Well, yeah, never made sense to me. Like you would want to build up your opponent, so when you beat him, it's so much better. But saying he sucks and then you beat him, who
Yeah,
cares? It's just a weird thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I never understood that either. It's simple, like equations. Like, this guy sucks, I'm gonna knock him out. It's like, well, you just knocked out a guy that sucked, so good for you.
But next year, it looks like we are locked in for a 135-pound PFL tournament. What does this mean to you? Look, coming into this, this is going to be awesome.
Well, I mean, you might know something I don't. I don't know of any official, like there hasn't been any official stuff
Oh
that
yeah,
I
yeah.
know of. But I wouldn't be surprised, like next year they announce something. So, yeah, I'm really excited. This first fight will be a real good tester for me to kind of just showcase my skill set, my level against someone, that's 9-3, very good record, fought on Contender Series before, like legit, had a belt 35, had a belt at 45. So it's very legit. So, I think this is a good test, just to kind of get my feet wet. And then next year, who knows if they do end up having that tournament, start staying active, start, accumulating those wins, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But there's no shortage of opponents, there's no shortage of high level fighters. So, instead of looking at it from like how excited I am for the tournament, it's more about like, okay, it's time for me to get all the best guys I know to help me level up.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. So someone has reported that there is going to be a 135
Cool.
pound tournament, but like you said, it's not confirmed. It's just being reported and like whatever. So let me ask you this first fight. You said you're coming in, you're a little bit nervous, but it's almost a good thing to have nerves, right?
Oh yeah, the last couple of fights that I've lost in the back, I was literally like, this is either going to be a great performance or horrible because I'm not nervous at all. And it turns out the losses I had these past couple years just I don't know what it was. Maybe it's a mental thing where you're not as nervous because you're not nervous. You're not I don't know if you're a big movie fan. I'm a huge like, superhero Marvel DC. I don't know if you
Mhm.
remember The Dark Knight Rises when
Of course.
Batman's climbing out of the cave, the hole.
Yeah.
Essentially, remember how he made the jump? It's without the rope. He always failed with the rope. There's like this safety net there. So you have to kind of take it off and make the jump. It's like it's very scary. But that's how you push yourself faster than possible. How are you supposed to move, faster than possible, fight harder than possible if you're not afraid, So then that's kind of like the mentality that I have now. I'm like, man, this last fight, I was scared to get knocked out because my last opponent was like a champion in the Philippines.
Mm.
Out of his 5 wins, 4 of them were knockouts, or all of his wins are by finishes. But I'm just saying, it was like, oh man, this guy's ruthless. A lot of his fights are not like on official records where I know he has more knockouts. He did a bare knuckle fight, knocked a guy out. So I'm like, this guy can fight. This guy's got power. So going into that fight, it was really uneasy. And then dealing with injuries going into that fight too wasn't easy. But the fact that I was able to kind of pull it off with a win, it just I think that mentally, I was like, man, you do need to be a little bit scared, and you do need the nerves.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember growing up, like I think Rampage Jackson talked about it. He said my worst fights, I wasn't nervous, and I knew
Yeah.
something had to be wrong. Why wasn't I nervous? Like it does help, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a psychological tool that you could use to your advantage. And also, I think the reason why you're not nervous is because you think you could beat these guys, like easy, like they're easy fights, So, like maybe the last two losses I had, I was like, both those guys didn't have nearly as much pro fights as I did. They had a lot of
Mm.
amateur experience, but I was like, oh, this should be a easier win. And then I'm like, oh, I've never had data from opponents that fight like that. This is very interesting. And then the other one was, oh, I've never fought in Colorado with high elevation. I didn't take that into account. So lesson learned, And then,
Mm.
just certain like just not having a whole lot of amateur fights, I had to learn the hard way as a pro. So I do have, a couple losses that, in my opinion, shouldn't have been there. Like it's my fault. I'm not saying it's, anyone else. I'm saying it's my fault. I shouldn't have let it gone there. But the beauty of MMA is it's not so much about the record like it is in boxing because you see guys lose all the time, but then it's how they bounce back. And I'm still early on in my career enough where I think I could string together a decent win streak again. And I'm sure a lot of people understand too with the record that I have, but it's like it was during COVID, a lot of gyms shut down. My gyms closed, 2 of my gyms closed. I had to like relocate, repackage everything up. So I think it's understandable, but at the end of the day, I definitely think these nerves, if you understand it, you could definitely, use it. But at the same time, there's been times where I've been super nervous, couldn't get a good night of sleep. It did backfire on me because I still got the job done, but it's how do we manage it better?
Yeah, that makes sense. Having control of it. Okay, let me ask you, because you said something there. I grew up as like a Justice League DC Comics guy.
Yes.
Okay, tell me best case scenario. Don't worry about what the studio's doing. What should we do with the DC extended universe? Like, what? It's not making any sense at this point.
Yeah,
What?
yeah,
Tell me,
yeah.
case scenario, your perspective. What should be done with this?
Okay. Well, first off, I don't even know why they got rid of Henry Cavill. I liked him as Superman. I thought he was great. And then Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman was amazing. I really liked her. She was probably one of my favorite additions. I
Mhm.
think with Batman, you could always, there's always so many. See, that's the cool thing about Batman. It's such a unique story that you could tell so many different ways with different actors. I didn't mind Ben Affleck. I actually liked his big physique, his frame, and then he was a little bit older, and he already kind of. I would have loved to have explored that. I'm not saying I hated the storyline or the movie, but I like the cinematography, like the Suicide Squad, the city,
Yeah,
Gotham. I kind of like that. Maybe it wasn't the best Joker, or it wasn't the best Lex Luthor, but the way the city was kind of created in Justice League as well as Man of Steel, I thought it was kind of cool. So I would have liked to see that explored. But honestly, with the way things are going now, I think they should just go clean slate. Like, I don't even know why they still did Aquaman. Like, you know, and then like it's gonna get confusing. And they're like, what was the point of Shazam? And then his Blue Beetle, they said it was a part of the new thing, but it's like they weren't sure. So they're kind of like, do we add it in? I don't know. I feel like DC has so much more relatable and interesting characters compared to DC, to be honest with you, because of the Justice League. Only because of the Justice League. So what they should have done is clean slate, new cast members, or they should have done this plan like years ago. But I have a lot of friends who work in Hollywood, and I know a little bit about it myself. It's not as easy because there's a lot of, I don't want to say greed, but there's a guy, that's in this department that wants to get this job done within a certain amount of budget.
mhm.
And everyone's kind of out for themselves in a way. So it ends up being like the actor or actress, they're like, we want the deal to be this exclusive and that. And then it's like, well, come on, work with us here. At the end of the day, I totally get their side. They want the best deal possible as opposed to the best movies and stories possible. Because at the end of the day, I don't think they really love the character as much as they say they do. I think it's their job. Just like, a lot of the Marvel characters now are like Chris Evans. He's like, I don't want to do this stuff anymore. I don't want to be the goody two shoes. So he kind of like is going into these villainous roles, just like in Gray Man. He was the villain, and he's honestly doing a pretty damn good job at it. But I think that's a problem with Justice League and the whole kind of issue. You're gonna get me ranting on that, so I'll just let you know what I think about it so far. I think out of all the characters so far, I think Gal Gadot is the only one worth really keeping. And then with this new Justice League, because you could always do that time different parallel dimension kind of stuff. So just have her with a different outfit already established, so we don't need to go through her background. She could just literally be this. Or you could always move her from this parallel dimension into the next one and just kind of have her come through and be like, what's going on? And then everything's chaos. They fight Darkseid, and then they kind of branch out into their own movies. I think those are all interesting routes.
Yeah, that's the thing with superheroes, and especially the way that the comics were written and then adapted into movies later on. There's unlimited potential. Like, we really don't have to fit these like square pegs into round holes. You can
Exactly.
literally do anything. Like talking about Wonder Woman, like the comic books just focused on like Greek god
Yeah.
drama. Or you could do that. You could do Amazonian stuff. Like, there's no limit to this. Like, just throw together a good story that we like, right?
I know, I know. It's really not that hard, like in my opinion. Like Marvel was able to do it, but it's like, yeah, I don't know. I get pretty frustrated because DC has let me down again and again, and it's
I know.
just on. And I love DC, man. I grew up on the Justice League stuff, so I know all my Justice League stuff. And I'm just like, what are you guys doing? Like you guys have all their movies, all the DC animated movies are like gems, and I'm like, literally, you guys could do a shot for shot, and kind of like play things out like that. And then like the Flashpoint movie with, the most recent one. I'm like, did you guys not watch Flashpoint Paradox? You could have
Yeah,
just
I
took
know.
that and ran with it,
I know.
Justice League Dark, Justice League Apocalypse War. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, those were amazing. You guys couldn't follow that, it's like, come on.
But you're missing out on the biggest one, the Batman versus Superman, the original like
Oh,
graphic novel
yeah.
adapted into a movie, a shot for shot remake of this. Why did you mess up Batman versus Superman?
How do you do that? How do you get two of the most like best money making characters of
Yeah,
all time? Batman,
yeah,
Super, like everyone knows what the S stands for. Like it doesn't matter where you go in the world, people know that's Superman. Batman, like the most everyone's like favorite. You know what I mean? how do you mess those two guys up in a movie? You know what I mean? It's just, I think a lot of it has to do with studio and definitely the higher ups. I don't think they care about storytelling as much as money making, so I get it. I get it.
I get it. Anyway, so
But
let's move. No, I'm so tired. As a DC fan, I had to just capitulate and be like, fine,
Yeah.
Marvel's better. I'm done. With it. This is not working.
I haven't even watched the most recent one. I didn't even finish Shazam 2. I'm just like, nah, this is going nowhere. There's no point in watching it if they're going to reboot the whole thing. So,
well, especially like Aquaman 2 was such a weird decision. Like, you guys canned Catwoman and then, canned Batwoman and then kept Aquaman 2. Like, who's out there being like, I can't survive if I don't get Aquaman 2? Like,
I don't think anyone asked for that movie. Like, I mean, really.
Man. All right, so let me ask you another question. We got to pivot. We got to pivot back to something. So if I find myself in Taiwan, do you recommend I check out Eddy's Cantina?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Eddy's Cantina. Yeah. I see you done your homework. He's great, man. He's really cool. He does commentating for some of the fights in Taiwan now. WOTD is the organization. He'll do like the English streaming. So he's starting to do a lot of that. He's honestly just a guy. He's a Mexican that was born in Canada that moved to Taiwan, and he just loves MMA. And there's no real Mexican food in Taiwan, so he does his Eddy's Cantina. And also, he just loves MMA so much, and he decided to start a podcast. He's one of those guys where he wants to do, like, everyone is kind of fighting for the small pond, whereas he's like, everyone gather around, let's create this huge, let's work together. Like, you're fighting over scraps. I'm trying to get us to go create an ecosystem. He's one of those guys, and I loved his mentality. That's why whenever I go back and get on the show and help him do his thing. But he's one of those guys that's really great. And anyone that's in Taiwan, I definitely say swing on over, or I think it's great. I think he's awesome.
Do you recommend people are going to pop into Taiwan for those spicy wings, or should they do something else there?
Those wings are tough. I don't recommend many people to try those wings. I eat spicy food. I'm not like on a scale 1 to 10, like a ghost chili pepper, whatever those are called. I consider those like 9 or 10s. I'm probably around a 6. I can handle like a 6 level spicy, so it's pretty good, 6 or 7. And those wings, man, those were tough. Like, I have a really strong stomach too. Like I'm lactose intolerant, but I can drink milk and I'm all good. You know what I mean? Man, those wings they hurt my stomach. Like, I was like, man, do I have to go to the hospital? And then I'm not even kidding. That night when I went back, it's all like tall skyscraper buildings in Taiwan because it's a city, right? So my mom, I think she's on the 15th floor. And that night they're like, oh, sorry, you can't take the elevator because we're renovating it. And I had to walk to the 15th floor with the stairs, and my stomach's killing me because the wings are hot. By the time I got upstairs, my shirt was soaking, and I was like my heart was pounding, my vision was starting to get impaired, and then I basically, the healthcare, not just in Taiwan, but the healthcare outside of America is just so much better for some reason. I went and called the doc, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? They're like, honestly, you're just having a very severe case of just eating too much spicy food and, just overloading the sensory. That's why it's kind of messing with your vision. If it gets worse, come see us. But we hear this all the time. Like, don't worry about it.
We hear it all the time.
Yeah, because a lot of people, I guess, eat a lot of spicy food in Taiwan. So they just told me not to really stress about it too much. And I was like, oh, great. So then I was fine the next day. But that was fun. I'm not going to lie. That was fun.
I do agree with you, though, that I do love spicy food, but I will fully recognize that there is a point of completely diminished returns to like, this tastes good and it's spicy. Now we're just eating battery acid. No one here is enjoying this, right?
Now you're just eating to get a reaction out of yourself, like, oh, I'm eating spicy food. It's like not enjoyable anymore. You still want to enjoy it because once your tongue becomes numb, your taste buds are gone. You can't taste anything. So it's like, what are you really getting, the spicy stuff for? So I get it. That's why I was telling people, I'm like, if you go out there, maybe don't try the wings unless you're up for a little challenge,
But it is a challenge. It doesn't, but that's just me. Okay. So let's jump back in here. What is with no matter what I Google, no matter what I look up.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to happen for your entire career. You could be pound for pound all-time great. And the Zuckerberg question is going to keep coming up, man.
Sure. Like, I get it. Yeah. It's crazy. It's like, who would have thought? Like, I understand Volkanovski and Izzy, you know, going to hang out with him and all that stuff. But like, why me? I don't have a background like that. It's not like I have family members that work for Meta. You know, like people thought like my dad or something or mom works for Meta. I'm like, dude, my mom is in Taiwan doing some business internationally. My dad's retired. You know what I mean? Like I don't have any connections to Meta.
Yeah.
So I understand the question when people ask me, how did you guys kind of connect? And I'm like, the story is my brother-in-law, Dave Camarillo, who used to, you know, be the
Mhm.
head coach of AKA, grappling coach, this and that. Like before the Khabib era, it was like Kane, Cormier, Koscheck, Fitch,
Yep.
and Swick. He worked with all those guys. And
Yeah,
basically,
Dave's an OG. Like that's an
OG.
old name. That's like touched something in my brain where like, oh, I was on a Sherdog forum and remember that name.
Exactly. And yeah, so he's an OG, you know, first season of Ultimate Fighter, he was there and all that stuff. You know, he was there when it all started. So Dave has a decent name because Dave's not very big on promoting himself. He lets his body of work do it for him. A lot of people reached out and wants to train with him, and that's why he ended up doing John Wick 4. He was, you know, he helped Keanu Reeves do the whole thing. It was really cool to see his whole experience and hear about it. But essentially, I think Mark just reached out and wanted to do some jiu-jitsu with Dave, and also wanted to potentially do some striking. He just wanted to do some martial arts. You know, I don't think it was anything that serious. And then I was brought in to work with him. And I always tell people this because I think me and Mark have a good back and forth with the dad jokes. I throw a lot of stupid jokes out there, and I think he might have liked it. That he
Okay.
kind of decided to keep me around, and we just work really well. And I think it's not always about having the best people around; it's sometimes having the right ones, you know. And I'm not talking about this instance, but I do share that sentiment. Like, you know, sometimes you could be with the best guys in the world, but it's like if you guys don't click, if you don't vibe well with each other, if you know professionalism is a thing, and all these other things have to kind of connect. And I think that's how we ended up because it was like I thought it was a one-time thing, and then I just kept
Mhm.
going back, and then we're talking about a year and a half later, and you know, a jiu-jitsu tournament, gold medal, silver medal, you know, and then the whole Elon thing happened, and you know, like I was with him throughout kind of all that. I'm just like, wow, that's really cool. And then we did that video where that released before, like 2 fights ago, where he just kind of dropped that video, and it came up like literally the day of. It was just like, oh, let's do a video. It was just really cool, you know. And at the end of the day, I always think I'm like, who am I, you know, to I never asked, I never did anything. What a nice guy, you know, like to just give me a little bit of like I'm downplaying it, obviously, not a little bit, but obviously everyone kind of knows me now because of that. And I honestly don't mind because it is a very interesting story, you know, like how did you guys come together? And I really
Mhm.
wish I could give you a little bit more of an exciting story, but it was really like that.
Well, that's the
Where
thing of like once you're friends with someone, doesn't matter how rich or famous they are. If you're friends, they're all chill together, right?
yeah, yeah, and seeing someone like him, it's just very inspiring. Like I'm like, man, I need to get my stuff together. Someone like him, the success, the business, the mindset, just very motivating. I'm just like, man, I gotta start making some moves too, business wise, other than just fighting. So it's very cool. It
You
was
ever
very
pit when you guys are like in guard or half guard or something like that, are you just like, hey, I have this idea. I have a business idea.
yeah, just sneak something in, right?
All right, so we always ask the same questions to all of the guests who come in, just kind of to get to know you a little bit more here. So, video games, formative games that you had or enjoyed or loved growing up. I think you were a fan of EA, MMA growing up, but what else did you play?
Well, I actually liked. I think my favorite one was Undisputed 3
Oh
UFC. It
yeah,
was with THQ at the time.
yeah,
I thought that was the best one because there was cut stoppages, the ground and pound, everything was like the best, and that's when you had the other two-weight classes, bantamweight and featherweight, added in.
yeah.
And then every character had their own special move. Like Aldo, his leg kick was different than everyone else's just because of the way the game. So that game was the best in my opinion. The career mode was much better. I don't like this whole new EA thing where this one coach kind of leads you in. I
Mhm.
just not the biggest fan. I remember the original one had almost all the fight camps in there. You had Top Team, AKA, even the second one, I think you could choose. It was really cool. But I
Mhm.
think because of legal issues and licensing, they're like, nah, we're not going to do that. We're just going to make up our own thing.
I
EA
get it.
MMA was probably one of the better ones. The only issue with that was it didn't have any of the UFC names. That's literally the only thing. If the UFC and EA MMA switched, it would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
I liked Knights of the Old Republic, the RPG Star Wars. I love Star Wars. You know, I grew up watching Star Wars, all that stuff. Battlefront 2, not the A one. The A one sucks.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah. The
original
OG one.
The OG one, that was like the greatest, thing ever. And I think if they made exactly just ported it over to like the graphics where it's better graphics and next gen console, I think they would still sell out super easily. I played a lot of Pokemon when I was a kid because I lived in Taiwan for a decent period of time. My favorite was when you played Silver because you got to go back to the red. You know what I mean? I was like, no way, it's 2 games in one. I could not believe it because I didn't know anything at the time. I didn't, it's just crazy. Elder Scrolls Oblivion was the more recent, like, I mean, I know Skyrim was the most recent one, but Oblivion is kind of what I grew up on. I was like maybe 8th grade to freshman was kind of when I was playing it, maybe even younger. So those were like I think my go-to games at the time. Grand Theft Auto 3 on PS2 was really fun back in the day. My parents kind of let me do whatever, and I think I turned out okay if you consider pro fighting and okay, turning out okay. But yeah, those are some of the games off the top of my head that I could say those were pretty fun.
Man, I remember Oblivion was so important to my life at one point. I remember this story that I went to this. So I worked at the top of the arena, right? And then my last fight was the Gray Prince, but I had to go to sports practice. And then the whole time I'm like, once I'm at home, it's going to be a big fight. Can't wait for my big Gray Prince.
Was that not a nostalgic, like just beautiful game? Like it was just I know Skyrim's good. It's only good because of in my opinion, because of the graphics, but there's something about Oblivion you just can't touch.
This is the thing. So they didn't go for amazing graphics. They went for an art style. And because of it, it aged much better than Skyrim did. Because other than the faces, it looked fine everywhere you go. It's a beautiful game.
Yeah, it's good. And you can't touch it. There's nothing bad you could say about Oblivion. I just love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, that's my go-to game. And it's a game I recommend. I just say, like, pick up this game, do the Dark Brotherhood quest line. And if you don't like it, then you're not going to like the rest of the game. But just do that, and you'll probably love the whole thing.
I know. I still love that game. I still, time to time, try to go back because I still have a 360. So on occasions. But it's been a little bit busy lately, so I haven't had the time.
Anime, was there any specific animes growing up or now that you're particularly into?
Yes. Okay. So obviously Dragon Ball Z, Yu-Gi-Oh, all that stuff. But I'm telling you right now, I'm all over this. It's Castlevania, dude. Castlevania on Netflix. Okay. The first 4 seasons were great. The newest one, Nocturne, it takes place 300 years after the first 4 seasons. Okay. So it's like the Belmont's great grandson, something like that. And man, geez, I just finished the most recent season. Jeez, dude, I cannot even. I'm like getting everyone on it. I never share animes on my Instagram, but I'm just like I've been sharing it like crazy. I'm just like, everyone get on. This is like the greatest thing ever. So, and they hit you with the nostalgia factor, but they build it up so good. They don't screw you over with like Spider-Man Far From Home or No Way Home, the third one, where all of them got together. Honestly, that storyline was, in my opinion, kind of trashy. Like Doctor Strange making a mistake. Like I don't know. I just wasn't a big fan, but the nostalgia got it right.
Yes.
They tried to do the same thing with Boba Fett. Like great nostalgia, but that show was horrible in my opinion. The fight scenes, just garbage. It's just no. But Castlevania got you with the nostalgia and kept a great storyline, and it paid off. I'm just like, I can't stop right now. It's insane. And it's not an anime, but I do recommend everyone to watch the show called The Boys. I think it's the greatest superhero show of all time. The Boys. I don't think any superhero show could touch that.
Yeah, well, The Boys is like, okay, do you remember in like 2007, 2008, Watchmen came out?
Yes.
And what Watchmen is about is like, if superheroes were real, they would kind of be dickheads. The thing is, Watchmen came out at the right time for a comic book, but as a movie, it came out at the wrong time. The Boys is like what Watchmen always should have been, and it came out at the right time, where there's way too many superheroes, and that's what The Boys is. Like, if superheroes were real, they would kind of be jerks.
That's exactly it. And I also think Watchmen should have been a show. That's what I personally think.
Yeah.
It should have been a show. I would think it would have killed it as a show. Yeah, but shows weren't as popular back then. But now it's like people don't realize how much money you can make off shows, especially with like Game of Thrones and Sons of Anarchy, all these other things. So it's pretty awesome.
All right. Last question here. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, how do you see yourself as an MMA fighter?
Ooh, 5 years from now, hopefully, it's not about being at the top or anywhere, but it's like hopefully in those 5 years, I actually got to reach my full potential. I don't think I want to be fighting 10 years from now because that'd put me at 38. I think I want to be done before 35. But like things change all the time. You never know. So hopefully, within the next 5 years, I really achieve some milestones, break some barriers, bring some excitement to this game. Hopefully, it's a different, a breath of fresh air. I only say that because out of all the Asian MMA fighters that are going down right now, like there's Song, he's an amazing fighter, but I just think the more the merrier. You know what I mean? Just the more the merrier. And I was like, American born Chinese is what they call ABC. So I feel like I can gather both, you know, just both markets and just hopefully live up to my potential and along the way chat with interesting people like you. And who knows, I mean, I already got a chance to meet and work very closely with Mark, and I never thought that would have been possible. So you can only imagine where my head is at now after that. And I think anything's possible now.
Anything's possible now. The future is looking good. You are making your PFL debut on November 24th. Khai, talk us on out here. You get the last word. Shout out who you need to shout out. Thank who you need to thank. All that good stuff.
Thank you for giving me the time and the platform to chat. Thank you for doing your homework. I don't say this enough, and I don't think people say this enough, but you really did do your homework. I appreciate you, giving me all these different questions. It was actually fun chatting with you. I didn't have to think about anything, so I do appreciate that. And if anyone wants to thank all my sponsors and training partners, if they want to see them and just kind of follow them, the people that helped me become me, just go on my Instagram. You could follow me. I give a lot of shout outs to my teammates and sponsors and stuff like that. So, hopefully I get to chat with you again after this fight and get a win. Hopefully we can come back to this conversation and make it longer next time.
Oh, absolutely. I'm thinking the same thing of like, man, there's so many ways we can keep talking all day here.
Yeah. Thank you again, though. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, sir. Best of luck in the match, eh?
Thank you.